Napoleon Bonaparte. Tiny guy, massive ego, and a knack for winning battles like it was going out of style. Born in Corsica, he rose through the ranks of the French military during the French Revolution, eventually crowning himself Emperor of the French. His military genius was unmatched, and he seemed unstoppable. He led his armies to victory in numerous battles, creating an empire that spanned much of Europe. But sometimes even the most legendary rock stars have their final curtain call. And for Napoleon, that final curtain call came at Waterloo. This wasn't just another battle, it was the grand finale of Napoleon's European tour, and boy did it go out with a bang. Picture this, 1815, Europe's political landscape messier than a teenager's bedroom, and everyone's favorite emperor is back for one last encore after a brief vacation on the island of Elba. After being exiled to Elba, Napoleon managed to escape and return to France, rallying his supporters for a comeback tour. Talk about a comeback tour? This wasn't just another Tuesday skirmish, this was the ultimate showdown. Napoleon, back in the saddle, and ready to reclaim his title as Europe's heavyweight champion versus a coalition of pretty much everyone else who had a bone to pick with him. The Seventh Coalition, a formidable alliance of Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia, among others, was determined to put an end to Napoleon's ambitions once and for all. It was a clash of empires, a battle for the ages, and the stakes? Higher than giraffe ankles in a high-ceilinged room. The fate of Europe hung in the balance as the two sides prepared for an epic confrontation. The Battle of Waterloo would become one of the most famous battles in history, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for Europe. Napoleon's dreams of empire were shattered and he was once again exiled, this time to the remote island of St. Helena, where he would spend the rest of his days. The legacy of Napoleon Bonaparte, the little corporal, would live on. But his days of glory were over. The Battle of Waterloo was his last stand, a dramatic and unforgettable end to a remarkable career. And so, the curtain fell on one of history's most iconic figures, leaving behind a legacy that would be studied and debated for generations to come. The stakes, higher than giraffe ankles in a high-ceilinged room. The Battle of Waterloo was not just a military engagement, it was a turning point in history, a moment that would shape the future of Europe and the world. Imagine a giant chessboard, but instead of pawns and rooks, we have thousands of soldiers in fancy uniforms. The air is thick with anticipation, and the ground trembles under the weight of marching boots. This is no ordinary game, it's a high-stakes battle where every move could mean life or death. On one side, Napoleon's French army, a well-oiled machine fueled by croissants and a burning desire to conquer. These soldiers are disciplined, experienced, and ready to follow their charismatic leader to the ends of the earth. Napoleon himself is a master tactician, always thinking several steps ahead. On the other side, a coalition of British, Dutch, Belgian, and German troops led by the Duke of Wellington, a man who took his tea time as seriously as his battle plans. Wellington is a seasoned commander, known for his strategic brilliance and unyielding determination. His troops are a diverse mix, each bringing their own strengths to the table. Talk about a recipe for tension. The days leading up to the big showdown were filled with strategic maneuvers, secret meetings, and last-minute preparations. Both sides were acutely aware that the outcome of this battle could change the course of history. Both sides weren't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs in the days leading up to the big showdown. They were busy gathering intelligence, fortifying positions, and rallying their troops. Every decision, every move was calculated to gain the upper hand. Napoleon, never one to underestimate the importance of a good first impression, divided and conquered, taking on the Prussians, led by the ever-punctual, or at least he tried to be, Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher, at Ligny. This was a critical move, aimed at weakening the coalition forces before they could unite, and the Anglo-Dutch forces at Quatre Bras. These skirmishes were intense, with both sides suffering significant casualties. Yet, they were just the prelude to the main event. Think of it as the pre-game warm-up, only with a lot more cannons and significantly less tailgating. The stage was set, the players were ready, and the world held its breath, waiting to see who would emerge victorious in this epic showdown. June 18, 1815. A date that would go down in history as one of the most significant turning points in European warfare. The day the music died, well, at least for Napoleon's ambitions. This was the day when the dreams of a French-dominated Europe crumbled like a house of cards. The battle kicked off near the quaint little Belgian town of Waterloo, a place that would forever be etched in history books and probably a few therapy sessions. This small town with its serene landscapes would become the stage for one of the bloodiest confrontations of the 19th century. Picture a muddy field, the air thick with anticipation, and probably the smell of gunpowder and nervous sweat, and thousands of soldiers ready to rumble. The ground was soggy from the previous night's rain, making the conditions even more grueling for the men who would soon clash in a brutal fight. Not exactly a recipe for a relaxing Sunday picnic. Napoleon's plan? To strike hard and fast, using his seasoned troops to break through the Allied lines? His strategy was to create chaos and confusion, hoping to dismantle the enemy's defenses swiftly, attack with the subtlety of a bull in a china shop, break through the Allied lines and send Wellington running for his carriage, presumably with a spare cup of tea in hand. Napoleon's confidence was bolstered by his previous victories, but he underestimated the resilience of his opponents. But there was just one tiny problem. Wellington wasn't exactly the type to back down from a fight. The Duke of Wellington, with his steely resolve and strategic brilliance, was prepared to meet Napoleon's aggression head-on. His troops, arranged in those iconic red lines, held their ground with the stubbornness of a mule refusing to cross a stream. The British infantry, known for their discipline and tenacity, formed impenetrable squares that repelled wave after wave of French attacks. The stage was set for an epic showdown that would decide the fate of Europe. Wellington, ever the strategist, knew that holding the high ground was like holding the winning hand in a poker game. His troops, hunkered down behind ridges, fended off wave after wave of French attacks. It was a grueling back and forth, a bit like a tennis match, except instead of tennis balls, they were lobbing artillery shells at each other. Not exactly Wimbledon, but, hey, who needs strawberries and cream when you have the sweet taste of impending victory, or defeat, depending on which side you were on. But just when things were looking a bit dire for the Allies, who shows up but Blücher and his Prussian army, fashionably late but ready to party. Turns out, coordinated attacks are kind of important in these large-scale battle scenarios. Who knew? With the arrival of the Prussians, the tide turned faster than you can say. Napoleon's retreat is looking a lot like a disorganized game of tag. The French army, outnumbered and outmaneuvered, crumbled faster than a stale baguette. It was a rout, a complete and utter disaster for Napoleon and his dreams of ruling Europe. Let's just say, it wasn't exactly how he envisioned his comeback tour going. Waterloo wasn't just a loss, it was a knockout punch. It shattered Napoleon's aura of invincibility, turning him from the Emperor of the French into, well, just Napoleon again. It's amazing how quickly one bad day at the office can ruin your whole century. After Waterloo, Napoleon's political stock plummeted faster than a meteor shower. He abdicated again and found himself back in the hospitality of the British, who were getting really good at this whole capturing Napoleon thing. This time they shipped him off to a remote island in the South Atlantic called St. Helena, you know, the place where your dreams of world domination go to retire. Gone were the days of grand armies, epic battles, and fancy hats. Napoleon, once the master of Europe, was now just another guy stuck on an island with nothing but time and his memories. I hear the sunsets over the South Atlantic are pretty spectacular, though. St. Helena wasn't exactly a five-star resort. Napoleon spent his days dictating his memoirs, playing cards with his companions, and probably wondering where it all went wrong. It's a tough break when you go from conquering nations to conquering boredom in the span of a few short years. But hey, at least he had a killer story to tell. And even though his name became synonymous with epic fail in some circles, let's be honest, the man knew how to make an entrance and an exit. Waterloo might have been the end of his reign, but it was also the start of his legend. And let's face it, in the grand theater of history, everyone prefers a dramatic tragedy to a boring biography.